Welcome back, everybody. It's Thursday, January the 6th, 2022. We're here after the new year, and this is Monday Morning Briefing, episode number 60. I didn't plan for the first episode of the year to be episode number 60, but worked out that way, so that's pretty good. We're back here in the shop. We were closed all last week. We've always closed between that week between Christmas and New Year's, just because we're usually having another, as families do. You've got one Christmas here, and then you've got to go see the in-laws or your family at another time. And so we usually leave that week open for any kind of travel or anything like that. We did go up to North Texas for North Texas Christmas on Claudia's side last week, and then just kind of enjoyed the new year and that kind of thing. But we were in the shop a little bit last week, did a few orders and shipments and stuff, and just kind of checked on some things. But mainly I was at the house doing honeydews for Claudia. So we ended up working on some stuff on the barn, some barn projects. We did some sliding doors on the front of the barn to get ready for winter, just to kind of close in that north side, and that way the wind didn't rip through the barn quite as much as it did last year. But mainly what we've been doing this week since we've been here, we had made a post on Instagram letting everybody know that the Monday video this week would be late, just because this is the first time in my history that I'm actually doing my inventory and year-end closeout of books and all that kind of stuff actually right after Christmas in January before the year gets going. Historically, I've always just kind of done it whenever I got a chance, and that usually ended up being the week before April 15th. And as everybody knows, in the United States at least, April 15th is our tax day when everything's got to be turned in, and I want to get everything into our accountant early this year. That way it's off my mind, it's done, everything's turned in. This is the part of business that most people that get into leathercraft or any other kind of skill set or trade, you don't really want to think about much. It's the boring part. It's the numbers. It's the accounting, the math, the business side of things. Many of us are really good with our hands. We're artistic. We're doing what we do, and that's why we're doing it, because we feel like we're good at it, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. We enjoy it. But the business side of things are something that most of us aren't really good at and don't want to spend a bunch of time doing. If you enjoy numbers and you enjoy the business part of it, then that's great, because it'll make this part of every year a little easier to handle. But in this episode, I just want to kind of visit just so we can get the year started out right. We got a lot of things going on, a lot of fun stuff coming up here this first quarter of 2022 that we're really excited about. So we'll be working on that and letting y'all know about that as things go along. As usual, be sure and sign up for the Leathercraft newsletter so that you get the the newest information as soon as it's out on stuff like that. But to get our year started here in the shop, before we get started back to slinging leather and doing things like that, I wanted to go ahead and get all the book stuff done. So the first thing we did, we got in here Tuesday, because we didn't come back from North Texas till Monday. So we got back in the shop Tuesday, and I immediately kind of tidied things up a little bit and began our inventory. If you've got a small shop, if you're just if you're just doing it as a hobby, if you're just doing it as kind of a side deal or whatever, it may not be that big of a deal for you. You may not even be accepting any kind of cash or payments for what you do. Then you probably don't have to worry about any of this stuff. But I would recommend kind of at least keeping an eye on it and knowing about it if you don't already, because if you do ever take it into a business setting and actually want to make a go of it, that's something that if you get a handle on it early and get a system down, it'll make your business life a lot easier, so that you don't have to spend as much time fiddling with a calculator all the time. But real quick on inventory, basically all I do when I take inventory is, and I've been doing a little research of that, and I want to preface all of this with, I am not a CPA, I am not an accountant, I am not giving any kind of legal or professional advice. I'm just telling you what I do whenever I take inventory and stuff, is that we're going to count everything in here that goes into the products that we make, because we're required to keep track of that inventory, because that inventory is actually, you can't expense that inventory out until you sell that item. So if you buy 15 buckles and you only sell 2 items that have those buckles in there, then have 2 of those buckles in there, you can't write off all 10, you can only write off 2 of them. So it's just a way to keep your books straight and to keep your profit and loss on your business accurate. And like I said, I'm not an expert on this. I'm learning as I go along, and 17 years later, I'm still trying to figure it out. I feel like I've got a better handle on it than I did, obviously, 5 years ago or even 10 years ago. But basically, all I ever do is I just kind of get a little grid sheet like this, make it in Excel, whatever you want to do, and then I will go through and list every item that we have, and I'll break it up into sections. It's easier for me to do inventory like that, so I'll do like all our hardware, and then I'll go after hardware. I'll do maybe my supplies, things that I keep track of, like snaps and rivets and different things like that you can actually count. Some of what I've researched said that you really don't have to count like thread and glue and things like that, because you can't really inventory that. You can't measure off how much thread goes through your machine on each individual project. So those things aren't necessarily inventory items that you have to keep track of. I guess if you're selling thread or selling glue, then you have units of those that you're selling as one unit. Those you would obviously keep track of. Suppliers like Makers Leather Supply, Weaver Leather, I would assume they have to inventory those. But for craftsmen like us, you've got a pound of thread on a machine. You don't know how much thread's in each item. It's almost impossible to measure that, and so you just expense that out when you buy it. But everything else, like your when you get into like leather and saddle trees and buckles and hardware, especially retail items, like we sell ball caps and t-shirts, we've got to count all those units, know what they are, know what their cost is. And so that's basically all I do. I break it down into what, it's kind. So all the hardware, all the leather, all the trees, all the t-shirts, all the hoodies, all the caps, we kind of break that down into sections. We count everything in each section, and then we total that up based on the number of units that we have, times how much they are per unit. And that gives us a cost value, not a retail value. That gives us a cost value on what dollars we actually spent to get that item on the sales floor or on the website. And then once we do that, then we just total all those up. And then we total up all the different sections, and that gives us an inventory total. That inventory total is something that you really need to have at the beginning of the year. So January 1, you technically need to have it January 1 so you know what your inventory is when you start your year. And then you go through your entire year and you're buying material and you're selling material and you're doing this and you're doing that. And then at the end of the year, you take inventory again. And so what that's going to allow you to do is you have your starting inventory, then you'll add into that all the dollars that you spent on more inventory throughout the year. You'll add those together, and then you'll take your end of the year inventory and subtract that out of that total. And that will give you your actual cost of goods sold. So actually how much money actually went out the door in finished goods or product or resale items or whatever. And that'll give you an accurate cost of goods sold. That's what they call that, a COGS, or a cost of goods sold. And you need that number because your gross revenue, if you look at a profit and loss sheet, your gross revenues is going to be your total income. So your gross sales, all the money brought into the business, is at the top, and then the first thing you take off is your cost of goods sold. So that's going to be, like I said, your material, your retail items, whatever that is, that cost value. You take that off, and then out of that number, all of your other expenses will come out of that. That would be your overhead, your payroll, your lights, electric, repairs and maintenance, your all those kind of things. And then what you're left with is your profit. And if that profit and loss sheet is as accurate as you possibly can make it, you have a very good view of what your business is doing and how profitable your business really is. And a lot of guys in small business and a lot of folks, whenever they're starting out or whenever they're going along, they've got a side hustle or something, they don't think it's as important to keep good records and to keep good books on their business because, it's just a side deal and I don't want to report a whole bunch of income, so I'm going to try to break even. I don't feel like that's a really good method or a really good way to conduct your business. I think you need to know what your business does, because if you ever want to do something with that business, sell it, borrow money on a house or do something like that, especially if you're self-employed and this is what you're doing full time. If you ever want to buy a house or do something like that, or buy a truck or something and you are going to finance it, if you go into the bank, all the banker wants to see is your books on your business, and that's all they're going to go off of. And so if you're not running your books correctly because you're not trying to report income or trying to, just kind of do it where, you break even, that kind of deal, then to your banker, you don't make any money. And it doesn't matter what you think you make. It matters what the books say you made. And so to me, that's just kind of my bit of advice, is to try to run them as straight as possible. If you're showing a lot of profit, that means your business is successful. That means your business is doing well. And it's one of those deals where you'll have to consider your tax implications and kind of keep an eye on that and be aware of that, so that come tax time, you're prepared to handle those taxes and you're not just spending everything that comes in. That's another reason why you want to know what those numbers are, because you don't want to be, which I have for the bulk of my career, every April it's like a guess. I have no idea what I'm going to owe in taxes. but it ends up, surprising me. And so over the last 2 or 3 years, we've gotten a lot better handle on the business side of things. We got a lot better handle on our books. And so I have a lot more of an idea come April what my taxes are potentially going to be. If you're a sole proprietor and you're starting out and you're running some numbers and you're doing good and all that, I highly recommend getting some type of system that'll help you to keep track of this stuff. The main thing is, like I said, take an inventory at the beginning of the year. If you're just starting this month and you're starting your business and right now, then your inventory may be zero. That's fine. But whatever you do at the end of the year, be sure and take an adequate inventory, and that way you'll have it going forward, because it's something that you've got to do every year. You can even do it once a month if you really want your books as tight as possible. There's ways, different software like QuickBooks and things like that are out there that will help you keep those books as clean as possible, and it'll actually keep your cost of goods sold accurate throughout the year so that you can monitor that and see month to month or week to week even kind of how profitable you are. And that really helps you. Everybody wants to talk about pricing. We've talked about pricing a lot on the podcast. We've talked a lot about pricing on this Monday morning videos. And if you really want to dig into your pricing and see how well your pricing strategy is working, then your profit and loss statement is a good way to do that, is a good way to look at that to see how does pricing each individual unit or each custom piece or whatever, how does that correlate over a month period when you go in there and look at after expenses and overhead and all that. Are you hitting the mark? Are you showing a profit like you want to, or do you need to go up, or do you need to adjust your pricing strategy? And that's a lot of my pricing strategy that I've come up with on how I price stuff. A lot of it came from my profit and loss statements on the business, as well as our tax return, because the tax return is kind of like the final deal for the year. That closes the year out. That's what you reported. That's what your business did. That's a snapshot of your business over a year period. And you can look at that and really, really see if there's some adjustments you need to do in your pricing strategy, because everything that you do per job or per unit sale or per custom piece, it ultimately correlates to the entire year because it's done multiple times. And if you're doing that consistently, if you profit on one thing and you use that strategy consistently throughout the year and you're managing your money or cash flows correctly, then it should correlate the whole year is the same profit, or should profit about the same. Outside of something like a big, you need to put a roof on your shop or something like that, those can throw your profits off too. But at least you know that where your numbers are. I think it's highly important. Like I said, when I started out for the first 10 years, we really bumbled a lot on the books and keeping good records and taking accurate inventories and doing all that kind of stuff. I really didn't even understand it. Do I want my inventory high at the end of the year or low at the end of the year? Do I have to count this? Do I have to count that? Do I have to count the paper towels that we keep in here? All this kind of stuff. But over the years, we've kind of just researched and kind of learned. I still am not, like I said, I don't feel adequate enough to put on a class on business cash flow management or inventory management for small businesses or anything like that. I just know what I do in my shop. I feel like it's pretty accurate, and we've got a CPA in our corner that works with us and helps me when I make mistakes and helps keep everything as clean as possible, so that if the big audit comes at some point in our business history, which it wouldn't, it's not surprising. People get audited all the time. If that did happen, the books are as clean as they can be, and if there's a mistake, there's a mistake. And that's the way I like to look at things. That's the way I like to do things. I don't like to hide things or try to do some workarounds or write stuff off that's really not able to write off, because like I said, if you do get audited, it's going to come back. They're going to find it, and then you've got to come up with that money at that time. So I'd rather just do it all clean and proper at the beginning, or as proper as I can. Cowboy math ain't the best, but at least it's there. And if they come in, then I got boxes full of stuff. But let me kind of give you a rundown real quick on how I've done it in the past. And there's been some years where we hadn't been real good about it, but the last 2 or 3 years we've been pretty decent about getting back into that system. The guy I learned how to build saddles from was very intelligent when it came to business, and set me up with a good process of just keeping track of records and keeping track of things for the business, so that we could properly operate year to year and hopefully be successful. But we just talked about inventory. That's one of the first things that I do at the end of the year, and I suggest, like I said, trying to do that in January before your year starts, because for one thing, you don't want to count stuff that you bought in January, because that's for this year, not last year, and we're working on all of 2021 at the moment. So I don't want to get in here 2 months down into 2022 and have bought a bunch of material, forget that it was purchased this year, and count it on last year's inventory, because that skews your numbers. They're not correct at that point. So you want to do it as quickly after December 31st as possible. If not, during that dead week. I should have done it last week during the dead week where we were kind of off, but Mama had other plans for us at the house and things she needed to get done, and so we went ahead and worked on that. So we're doing it this week. But do that first, do your inventory first, and then you want to go through, if you are using a software system like QuickBooks or something like that, you want to go back through there and make sure that all of your expenses are entered, make sure that all your income is in there, clean anything up that may be, in a special, account or something in there that you don't know where it goes. Try to find out what that was for. If it's a legitimate expense, put it where it goes. QuickBooks makes it really easy. You can actually get QuickBooks online, and then you can connect your bank accounts to your QuickBooks. So everything that happens out of your business account goes right in there. It pulls it in. All you've got to do is itemize it or put it in the categories that it needs to be in. And it even nowadays makes it even easier, because you can set up rules for recurring payments and things like that, where it automatically puts it where it goes. So it can really cut down on your time. I have in the past done just a ledger, done it all on paper, kept paper receipts, kept paper journal entries, all this kind of stuff, and that's a real simple way to do it. If you're really small and you don't have a whole lot of revenue and expenses and things like that, that's the easiest way to do it, is just keep it on paper, save all your receipts, and then that way you've got them. And what I do at the end of the year is I'll take all of our files from the year before and all of our invoices and receipts for material, invoices and receipts for expenses, repairs, meals, whatever I've got. I save all of those, and we put all of those in one box, either a shoe box, either a file box, whatever size box you need to put it in. Put all those in there. I try to organize them some as like material invoices, expenses, any kind of tax information, any kind of mail that you get from different tax agencies, your payroll or sales tax, all that stuff goes in that one box. And then once everything is done, taxes are done, the files or the tax return is filed, everything's finished, we'll put the lid on that box, we'll tape that box up, write 2021 on it, and file it away in the closet. Then that means that year is done. But if something ever happens, or you need to go back to that year to say find an invoice because you can't remember how much that piece of ostrich was last year, and your price this year seems a little high, and you want to look at it, you can always go to that box, open that box, find that invoice very easily, and you don't have to call the guy and ask him, and he's got to try to find. You can get to all your stuff. And then, like I said, if you do get audited or something happens, or your CPA needs something, where all the information is for that year is in that one box. And then over the years, you'll end up with a bunch of boxes stacked in a closet somewhere. And at some point, I'm not sure what as far as what they recommend saving, how many years back, but I think I usually save around 7. 7 years back, I save those, and then anything before that, we'll burn them or do something like that. No real reason to save them. But I know some people that save them forever, and they save every one of them and all that, and that may be kind of neat, but it gets very cumbersome. When we moved out of the big store, we had been there 10 years, and I had a bunch of those boxes, and just full of every year, a box for every year of all the receipts and all that stuff, and I finally had to burn some of them that were the early ones, just to kind of make some room. No reason to lug them around. But that's what I kind of do to close out the year, and then we get ready to go for the new year. And it's kind of nice whenever you do that, because your shop is then kind of organized. You have a fresh idea of what inventory you have on hand. Automatically, like, hey, I'm down to half a side of 5/6. I'm going to need to order some more of that, because we just came off a break. We just came off the holidays. You might not be thinking about that you're down to your last box of copper rivets or something like that. So it's a good refresher. It's a good kind of get back to baseline and get your shop kind of righted and cleaned out and ready to go for the new year. It's also a good time to kind of look back at those numbers, and when you get your profit and loss kind of lined out, where you can kind of see what you spent on expenses for the last year and all that, take a minute to look at those numbers and to kind of look at where a lot of your money's going. And some of it may be stuff that you can adjust. Maybe it's some things that you're paying a subscription for, say for some software, or you're maybe you've got a bill in there for something that you're like, I don't even use that anymore. there's no reason for me to keep doing that. You can cut some expenses. You can do some fat trimming and stuff like that, because the beginning of the year is the perfect time to do that for your business and kind of get a good jump on this next year. And that way you're fresh, clean, and ready to go. And you can try to make it as profitable as you can going forward. So one of the things I want to talk about that's kind of on this topic is going to be your bank account. A lot of people, when they start their business, whatever, they just run it through their personal account, no big deal. And you can kind of earmark some stuff and buy material, stuff like that, and run a few items and sell something here and there and all that. But if you're wanting to move forward and kind of do it more legitimate like a business, and even if it's a side hustle, but you want to run it right and want to run it correctly, I would highly recommend getting a separate account for your business. One account is fine. It can be a free checking account. It doesn't necessarily have to be a business account. Sometimes those have fees and stuff with them, but there are advantages to having an actual business account. But you need to have a single account for that entity, for your business, side hustle, full-time gig, whatever it is. This will make your end of the year books and it'll make all that so much easier, because you're not commingling your personal expenses and income with your business expenses and income. So if you'll set up, like I said, I started out with just a free checking account at my bank, and that's what I used when I was in college for my little business. It makes things a lot easier and a lot cleaner, and I would think that the IRS or your accountant or whatever would really, really appreciate it being that way, because it just cuts out a lot of the mud. There's not a lot of questions on, well, was this business or was this personal? So if you do that, then every bit of money that comes to your business from the sale of products or services or whatever you're doing goes into that account. And then every expense for that business comes out of that account. And nothing goes in or comes out for personal use whatsoever, or your ranch or your cows or anything else that you're doing. It's just for your workbench, your workshop, your leather shop, whatever it is. And then that way at the end of the year, you can actually just go off your checkbook registry or that one bank account, your bank statements. You can go through there and get all the data you need to do your taxes. You won't need to... you won't have to go and hunt and, well, did I spend that out of this account or that account, or did I pull money out of savings? Everything is right there. If you need to pull money out of savings to do something for your business because the business just doesn't have the cash for it, you can move money from your personal savings into the business, as they call that something, but it's just like you're investing in your business at that point. But still, you have a track of that money coming into the business from you, and then that money being spent on the business out of that business account. And so I've seen this with a lot of people that still don't do that. They have just one account, personal account, they run their business through there. And it makes it very, very confusing at the end of the year when you're trying to get your taxes prepared and all that, because you have so many transactions usually through a personal account, because that's the one you're eating with, you're buying Christmas with, you're buying birthday presents, you're buying feed for the horses, whatever you're doing, everything goes through there. And then you've got to go through all that stuff and figure out what's business, what's personal. If you'll just separate it, it's a lot easier, because then you just pull a bank statement, look at it. Everything in there is either a debit or credit for the business. There's no question about it. There's nothing in there that your accountant's going to say, hey, what is this? And what was this for? And is that business, or was that for you, or whatever? So that's something that I would highly recommend doing. Like I said, free checking account. It's easy. It doesn't cost you anything. And it'll actually give you a little bit more confidence with your business, because it's kind of cool that you have, this is the business's area right here, and it gives you a little bit better idea of where your business is at month to month. And you can actually run a profit and loss statement off your bank statement every month you get it in the mail. You can just look at that and figure out your revenue, your cost of goods sold, minus your expenses. That'll give you your profit. I met with a business consultant. He did turnarounds, so he would buy companies, big manufacturing companies. He had a line of investors with him, and they would buy multi-million-dollar manufacturing companies that were going into bankruptcy. And he would buy those companies and then turn them around. And so he would get them to where they were profitable, whether it took him 5 years, 6 years, whatever it was. But he would make the company profitable and get it out of bankruptcy. And then at that point, he would sell that profitable business for a pretty big profit. And he was, at the time I met him, he was probably 45 and kind of semi-retired, multimillionaire, really neat guy. But he basically broke down business math for me because I was having a hard time at that time just trying to figure things out. I was too far down into the minutia. I was trying to figure it out, and I just had too many things going on I was trying to fiddle with to try to make the business profitable. Those were some tough times at that point, and he basically told me, he said, all business, no matter what it is, it comes down to one equation, and that's gross revenue minus expenses equals profit. And if you get it to do that, and that last number is in the black, so it's a profitable number, it's not in the negative, then you're doing it right. Like everything else, you can figure all that other stuff out. Your customer service, your return policy, all these other things, you can figure those out as you go along. But the main root thing of any business is income minus expenses equals profit. Sounds easy. Sounds like duh, right? It's not that hard. But that is the equation that most people forget. And that's what we've talked about before on just pricing a product. So it goes through the entire business. So if you're pricing a product, same equation. If you're looking at your business on whether it's profitable over a month, same equation. A year, same equation. A decade, same equation. You just have to bring in money, don't spend more than you brought in, and then there should be a profit at the end. And if you're doing all that, then you've got a good handle on things. And like I said, it sounds dumb, it sounds easy, that's not that profound. But when you really grasp what that means, it can really help you in every aspect of your business and every dollar that you spend in order to grow your business. So if you're working on growth this year, if that's one of your goals that you want to grow, whether it's with Instagram followers, or you want to grow your exposure, or you want to grow your profits, or whatever it is, you can look at that and say, if I invest this many dollars, what's my return going to be on that? Because it's got to be in the black. If it's not in the black, it's not worth it. And so that's kind of one of them deals where, a lot of people, when they start out, they'll buy, get caps made and t-shirts and pins and notepads and all this to give away to everybody. But you can't go crazy with that kind of stuff because it's still got to be profitable. And the only way giving stuff away, like freebies, like stickers and koozies that we do and stuff like that, is that you have to have enough profit to cover the expense of that so that you're still profitable at the end. And like I said, I know that sounds very easy and very, plain and not real hard to understand, but a lot of people forget that in business, and I did for many, many years. I thought the top numbers getting bigger, that means we're doing great. But it doesn't matter if you make $3 million a year in gross revenues. If you spend $3.1 million, then you've lost money. And so it doesn't matter what that gross number is. What matters is the bottom number on your profit and loss statement. That bottom line, what's left over. That's the number that matters, because that number allows you to go into the next year or the next month or next week with enough room to grow. And if you don't have that room for growth, you're struggling month to month. It can make things really, really difficult, and it can really hamper your skills, like what you're doing and your love for the trade. And I don't want anybody to get into this deal and jump ship from their day job and then get into this deal and not have a good handle on at least the basics of running the business and handling cash flow. And then a year later be struggling financially and having a lot of, resentment for your craft or for your decision because you're not doing well financially. It's one of those deals that, we've all been through that. We've all had hard times, and we'll probably, in the future, we may have more. It's one of those things that you just have to keep a handle on, and keep a handle on those numbers and running your books right. And like I said, nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to come into the saddle shop and go into the office and sit in front of a computer for 6 hours doing your taxes. I do not want to do that right now. But we've got to get it done. We'll get it out of the way, and then we don't have to worry about it. And we can move forward with the rest of the year, and hopefully with better practices. Because when I'm doing inventory now, I'm noticing things like I need to organize that shelf, or I need to organize these items, or I need to, liquidate some of this stuff because I'm counting it every year and we haven't used it in 3 years. And you'll find that when you do inventory as well. I've got a stack of Sam Brown buttons that I use maybe 2 a year, and we bought 150 of them when we first started, not knowing those things are like $1 a piece. But I still have them, and it's like, that kind of stuff probably won't get rid of, but it's like, what am I going to do with those? That's not an item I need to ever buy again because I don't use them that often. There's a lot of things that handling your business on the back end and the business side will help you make better decisions at the workbench. And so don't be scared of it. I know it's grueling. I know it's boring. And if you really, really hate doing it, hire somebody to come in and do it if you have the ability to do that, and they can help you, get lined out. I highly recommend working with a CPA or an accountant that has your interest in mind, and that you're going to cost you a little bit of money, but I think it's highly worth it during the year, because if you have questions on some purchase decisions or on selling something or whatever you're doing within your business, they're a great person to at least be able to shoot an email to and get an answer that's correct, because those people, that's all they do is, count numbers and do math and look at the tax code and do all that. They know all the ins and outs. And if you can find you a good CPA that you can work with, that is, I think that's a very good investment long term for your business. And that way you can, have somebody to bounce some ideas off of and work with. Because I don't have time to sit there and read the tax code. That things are that thick books, full of all the different code, and it's so confusing. And I think that's by design. But I don't have time to know all that stuff. I just want to know that what I'm doing is beneficial for our company and beneficial for its growth. And that way we can move forward, and that we're staying within the realm of where we need to be, and we're not, screwing something up to where later on it's going to come back and bite us. And it still may. That's the deal. You're going to make mistakes. You just got to kind of learn as you go and move forward, and hope that everything gets lined out and do the best that you can. But working with a CPA can really, really help you with that. But that's a long, boring conversation on inventory and end of the year stuff, and may have lost all of you by now just from even bringing up math and numbers and doing that kind of stuff. We want to get back to leather work. We want to do some leather work. We got a lot of stuff planned for the year, and we're pretty excited about it. Like I said, I should be done with inventory today, should be done with the books, hopefully pretty much. And then we can get back on working on our website updates. We have been working on that over the break as well, off and on. And I feel pretty good about it. Anytime we make some changes, especially big changes like what we're doing, it's kind of scary, because I don't want to screw up something that's already working. And it's not that what we've been doing isn't working. It's just not as user friendly, mainly on our end, but also on your end. I think this is going to be a little bit better for you as you go to the site and you're looking for stuff. And it'll make it a lot easier on us. On the back end of things, just getting orders out as quickly as possible and keeping things in stock and doing that. But we've been working on that. We're working on the course as well. So hopefully the course will be, I'm hoping it comes out this month. If not, it'll be in February, but we're working on that. I think it's going to be pretty good. It's going to be a tooling course, like we've mentioned before. It's going to be all on the actual tooling. It'll be pretty much fundamental, but I don't know that there'll be a second one to this one. Maybe so, but it's basically going to give you, all the tools, what they do, how we use them, different ways of using them, and that kind of deal. It's a fun course. It's probably going to be fairly long, but hopefully we'll get that launched here pretty quick. And as more information comes, I'll let you know about that. But one thing cool that I got right before, I guess I got it right before New Year's, came in, got shipped in, and I think y'all are going to be pretty excited about this, but we got dies made for the gunslings. And so this one is for the thumb hole sling. It has the hole, so when you get one of these, we will offer these as material packs. I don't know how many we're going to be able to, the thing with shape dies, so if we're cutting belts out of a side of leather, you block that side in like we've showed you before, and then you go to stripping belts. You can get very consistent, 1.5 inch strips, boom, 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 down to where you get to the belly where it's not quite as good, then we stop. So you usually average 12 to 15 belts per side, depending on the depth of the side. When you start cutting shape stuff out like this, you get a little bit more waste. And so that's why a lot of shaped cuts are far more expensive than a straight cut. So if if you go into, say, a feed store or something like that, your straight stirrup leathers are going to be a price, and then your fenders are going to be more than that. And you think, man, why is it this? It's about the same amount of leather. Why is it more? Because it's shaped. So you have a lot more waste in that hide, a lot more leather that's going to end up going in the trash, so to speak. And so that's the only deal. The yield on your hide is going to be less anytime you're doing something shaped. But I think it's going to be cool. I don't know how many we're going to end up being able to keep all the time. I've got to do something with our leather shipment. We'll probably have to adjust that and increase some of the leather that we're getting in order to compensate for these. But I got this one, and then I also got the just regular shaped one as well. So we've got both dies for both styles of the rifle sling that we did the rifle sling pattern pack for in video. That has been our hottest selling pattern pack that we've done, I think, to date. I've got to go back and look exactly at all the numbers, but that one has done really, really well. I want to thank everybody that's purchased that one. Hopefully you got to make some around Christmas time, or planning on making some here for the spring. They're really simple to make. They're just like a belt, basically, a little bit more hardware. but these dies are made for that pattern. So when we start clicking these out and start offering these on the website in material packs, what we'll probably do is just offer the veg tan piece, the backing, and it'll be cut out of probably somewhere around 5, 6 ounce, 7 ounce, somewhere around there. I don't want to make them too heavy, and then you can line them with whatever you want to line them with. Some people are lining them with suede, which is a great idea. I had a gentleman I talked to on the phone that said that he's made rifle slings for a long time, and he actually bought our pattern pack because he wanted the floral tooling patterns. But his style, the ones he makes, he always lines them with like a suede or something, because the rifle sling won't slip off your shoulder if you're carrying a gun and climbing or doing whatever. It's not going to slip. And I thought that was a great idea. I never really thought about that. And so I did some guitar straps at Christmas time, and I actually lined those with suede leather as well, because I thought that's kind of the same deal. You don't want that thing slipping off all the time. It's kind of annoying. But especially when you're carrying a rifle, you don't want those things to slip. So if you want to line it with suede, you can line it with suede. Chap leather, if you want to add foam to the back for some padding or something like that, you'll be able to do that. But we will sell these in a material pack, just probably singles, and it'll just be that veg tan piece clicked out. You won't even have to cut the hole on the thumb hole ones. It'll already be there. And then the only thing you have to do is punch your holes for the Chicago screws. And if you've got the pattern, you know exactly where those are going to go. But I'm pretty excited about these. The only trick with these dies, I don't know how long they're going to last. These are from Texas Die Company, Texas Custom Dies. And they do all of our dies, and they're a fantastic product, and all of our dies work really, really good. They did caution me, though, on the length of this die, and that sometimes over time they will bow, because I don't have a clicker. The head on my clicker isn't big enough, obviously, to click this entire piece out in one press. And so what we've got to do is we've got to hit this one. I cut a couple of these out over the break just to try them out, and it works great, but we've got to do 1, 2, and 3. I've got to hit it 3 times. So I think what I'm going to try to do, I've seen a lot of big dies, especially at Court Saddlery when they were in business there in Bryan. They've got dies for skirts and stuff. And a lot of the longer dies, they do bow over time, but they seem to still function, and you can sometimes get them reworked and straightened. But I'm not extremely worried about it. As many as these as we will cut, I don't think will really destroy the die that bad. And so, but what I'm going to try to do is maybe click one end, then the other end, then the middle, and try to rotate it, and that way I'm not clicking at the same place all the time. Maybe that'll limit some of the bowing that may happen to these dies. But they weren't the cheapest dies that I've had made yet, but they weren't extremely bad. I was actually pretty pleased with the price on these. Like I said, they're an investment. We'll get as much use out of them as we can, and then we'll replace them if they ever do get pretty bad and broken or something. We'll just have another set made, and hopefully that's many years from now before we have to do that. But we've got some other dies coming as well. Some of the other projects that we're going to do. We've got project videos that we're working on the ideas for right now and getting some of the patterns set up. I'm going to try to this year kind of time it where we've got the pattern, the die, and the video coming out roughly at the same time. That way everything's ready to go, because now that we've got a system for doing the printed packs as well as the digital, and we've got a good relationship with our die company and a good system for getting the files to them so that they can make the dies accurately, then now it's a lot easier. So I think what we'll do is try to do that from going forward for the year, see if we can accomplish that and have the dies and the patterns made before the video ever hits. And that way when the video comes, you want to watch it and go make one, you can make one as usual. But if you do want a material pack or you do want a pattern pack, we will have that offered and go from there. Had a few people ask about what's the goal for Lost Trade for the new year. I actually have a meeting with the producer here pretty quick, and we're going to visit about that, like what we want to do to get a little more consistent and to help with lining up guests and who we want to interview and some different things we want to do with the podcast. We do have a podcast that should be posting hopefully here pretty quick that we already interviewed the person the last month. And so hopefully that'll be out. I know a bunch of y'all have been missing it and have emailed us and said, hey man, are you still doing it or did you stop doing it? We haven't stopped doing it. We've just kind of stopped doing it for a little bit through Christmas and the craziness of the holidays and that kind of thing. But we've got to get a game plan down for the podcast so that it kind of stays a little more consistent and so that it kind of runs itself. You know, it might be one of the deals we might be looking for somebody to help us with that at some point. But But that's kind of the things that we're going to visit about and talk about and kind of go from there. But that's really all I got for you this week. I want to thank everybody for all the support and watching our videos and everything in 2021. And I want to thank you for being here in 2022 and coming along with us and watching our videos. And be sure to go to our website and subscribe to the Leathercraft newsletter. That's going to be beneficial for you this year. As we always say, everything that we do that comes out new, it always goes to the newsletter first, so you're going to be a part of that. And that way you can get kind of updates on what's going on and be in the know of when a new product or new video drops, or just for some tips or little discounts or whatever we send out through that thing. You'll want to be a part of that. Like I said, we do have some updates coming to the website, and as soon as that is ready to hit the go button on, I will pop in here and do a video and kind of explain some of what's happening there. But just real quick, if you do have a current My Store account on our website with archived digital patterns that you've bought over the years, that will not be going away. Going forward, some things may change on that as far as it being able to archive those for you, but we're looking into that and working out some of the bugs on that. But as far as the historical archived digital patterns in your personal account or your store account on our website, that will still be, you'll still be able to access that when this change happens. And so don't worry about that. It's just that the new ones may not be going into that account there. So it'll be kind of an accessory account for for you customers that have been with us for a long time and that have digital patterns there that they don't want to lose access to. Because that was one of my big sticking points, was if we were going to do this, I did not want that to go away. Because I think that's handy. You know, I lose stuff all the time, lose hard copies. I've had to make 2 other patterns over Christmas that I know I had at some point, but I had to recreate them because I don't know where they went. I think my boy probably threw it in the trash or drew on it, or the dog ate it. I'm not sure. But we're going to get out of here. We're going to get back to wrapping up this book work and office work stuff so that I can get back to the bench and get to slinging some leather and making some videos. I appreciate you. Be sure and hit that subscribe button if you hadn't already, and we'll see you next week in the Monday Morning Briefing.